So anything that Trump does, whether in a reaction to whatever North Korea does, North Korea can start an artillery barrage of Seoul within seconds after that. So that's a real threat. And so those three legs, the missile fields and the storage depots for missiles, the aircraft airfields, and there's about 11 to 15 airfields that have to be taken out, as well as a mass of artillery tubes. Those have to be done in a preemptive strike in order to make sure that North Korea can't effectively retaliate.
Sure, and I'm not a former naval aviator like you are, and a guy that's actually drop bombs in combat. Get into North Korea. Let's get into where you think Trump is right now, where this country's going, as you co-host this hour with us, Joel Skousen of worldaffairsbrief.com.
The important thing to remember is that you've got a war going on in the White House of globalists and neocons trying to keep Trump from doing an effective preemptive strike against North Korea. And I outline in today's World Affairs Brief, which people can get by simply emailing me at editor@worldaffairsbrief.com. I outlined the military strategy that I think, as a former Marine Corps fighter pilot, that they've got to do to preemptively stop North Korea from a massive retaliation. In other words, there's three major North Korean sectors where they can project power rapidly towards South Korea or Guam or Hawaii. And one are the ballistic missiles, which right now really don't have anything but conventional warheads. The Japanese proved that in the last ICBM test where they launched a warhead and it came back into the atmosphere, it burned up and exploded. In other words, they haven't got the technology to be able to keep a warhead from burning up upon re-entry, where the temperatures are extremely high. Warheads glow as they're coming into the atmosphere, but they're not supposed to burst into flames. The North Korean warhead burst into flames. So we're looking at a conventional threat from missiles, which is not that hard to defend again. But the other two triads of this three-legged offensive capability of North Korea are a massive air force, mostly MiG-21s, but they do have 40 MiG-29 aircraft, which have long-range capabilities. The reason that's effective is not so much that they can go up against our F-16s and South Korea's F-16s and Marine Corps F-35s that are in South Korea, but the U.S. needs to have absolute air superiority to take out fully the artillery threat to South Korea, because a lot of those artillery units, 170 millimeter big guns, long-distance artilleries, are built into tunnels and caves in a series of 4 ranges of mountains north of the DMZ, where they can come out on self-propelled vehicles or on railroad tracks and back into the tunnels after they shot, so that any retaliation is blunted. And the U.S. needs to have air superiority so they can run roving combat patrols over those areas and immediately attack those guns when they come out. But this third triad leg is the artillery force. They've got about 15,000 tubes in the open out there in the DMZ, which has North Korea in range. So anything that Trump does, whether in a reaction to whatever North Korea does, North Korea can start an artillery barrage of Seoul within seconds after that. So that's a real threat. And so those three legs, the missile fields and the storage depots for missiles, the aircraft airfields, and there's about 11 to 15 airfields that have to be taken out, as well as a mass of artillery tubes, those have to be done in a preemptive strike in order to make sure that North Korea can't effectively retaliate.
Sure, and I'm not a former naval aviator like you are, and a guy that's actually drop bombs in combat. Isn't the issue here? I mean, I'm not wanting war. If we're really going to do it, don't we use a bunch of tactical nuclear weapons on the DMZ to completely wipe them out in a preemptive strike? I mean, I don't want nuclear war, and it seems like the way to stop it, if you're going to hit them, you've got to fully decapitate their military. You've got to block them, or they're going to human wave attack, as they've been trained to do, coming out of those tunnels, totally brainwashed. They're going to overwhelm a lot of the forces there, and then we're going to be in a big quagmire, and we're not going to be able to get all their 100,000 artillery pieces unless we just bomb the entire DMZ with tactical nuclear weapons.
Well, obviously, from a military point of view, using tactical nuclear weapons as part of the preemptive strike would be the only effective way to take out the entire artillery forces. But I think I'm positive, in fact, within my military sources there, that that's not on the table on a preemptive first strike. It's got to be conventional at first. And a conventional strike, in the way I'm outlining it, you could get all of the airfields with cruise missile strikes, all of the missile fields simultaneously with about half of the artillery. The rest of the artillery can be taken out over a period of week. And I can tell you that that will lessen the effect of it. It won't stop it completely. But I can tell you that the waves of human assault troops coming across the DMZ and their armored corps don't have a chance once the U.S. has air superiority over the battlefield. You just simply can't run human waves and tanks across open terrain without getting bombed to death from an enemy that's got air superiority. And so here's what I'm saying, though. The globalists are basically telling Trump, now you can't do anything until North Korea actually strikes the U.S. In other words, they want to wait until there's an actual strike. Now, Kim Jong-un, unfortunately, in terms of the globalist point of view, has said, I'm going to strike Guam by August 15th or so. Now, he's not meaning strike Guam, but he's going to take 4 ballistic missiles, throw them at Guam, and supposedly target them to be 30 or 40 kilometers offshore. Now, I can tell you, from a military standpoint, when you got Naval Base Guam and you've got Anderson Air Force Base with B-1 bombers, you've got 3 nuclear-powered attack submarines.
It's a terrorist act to fire these not very well-guided missiles at the island. I mean, we got to respond to this.
That's right. And what I'm saying is there's no way a military force or a president like Trump is going to accept those missiles coming in and depend upon North Korea to actually miss the island.
So we're coming up on a real crisis. I mean, you've never talked like this before. I know you really think that it could be it, and I agree. This is really, really serious, and we all have a sick feeling I've never had before. We'll be right back. All right, I've been having Joel Skousen on for, 18, 19 years. I've never really heard him advocating strikes or preemptive strikes. He was against, the Iraq war, all these things. And now here he's saying we probably need to hit North Korea first. I mean, at least if that's on the table. So let's talk about that. I mean, why it's led you to this point in what you're saying.
Well, it's important to realize that even though I'm a libertarian, I disagree with Ron Paul and other libertarians who tend to have been influenced by the globalist manufacture of war like Iraq. These were globalist wars of intervention. These were not true enemies of the United States. But North Korea, Russia, and China are true enemies of the United States. They are building weapons of mass destruction aimed specifically at taking down the West, not the cities. They want to decapitate the U.S. military. And the globalists actually want to go along with that, as you know, and I've told your listeners before. A decapitation strike on the U.S. military will serve their purposes in stampeding Americans into believing that the only way to save themselves is to join a militarized global government. But the key to understanding the North Korean situation, it's been preserved as a trigger event. That's the only thing that explains why the U.S. has dealt permissively with North Korea versus Iran, which has just been ruthlessly persecuted for a nuclear program that is much further behind than North Korea, and a missile program to boot.
Yeah, that's the question. Why did Bill Clinton and the globalists and Jimmy Carter enable North Korea even more than China?
Because they know that the Russia and China are going to use North Korea as the trigger event to start World War III. You know, it's the perfect foil to have a crazy man start the war. Then Russia and China say, hey, it's not our fault. You know, the crazy man started the war, but the U.S. intervened, and we have to back our ally, and so we're going to nuke the United States. So it's very, very convenient to keep an unstable, immature. Actually, he's not crazy. He's actually fairly smart, but he's spoiled, rotten. He has delusions of grandeur, and China allows that to happen.
Oh, yeah, you can't fake the power trips that guy is having. A few years ago, he looked a little bit scared, but now something happened, and he just looks like a complete demon.
Well, the key to understanding what's going to happen, though, is this Guam situation. You see, the globalists are telling Trump, you can't do anything unless he actually attacks. Well, you know, Kim could play that game forever, just threatening and not attacking, and allow him to buy more time to build more missiles and more nuclear weapons capability.
And then when he fires a real attack, we don't know that that was a real attack. We just think it's another test.
That's right. But in firing 4 missiles at Guam, I can tell you, the U.S. at a minimum is going to shoot down those 4 missiles with its THAAD anti-missile system that is present. They got a unit on Guam They also have other Aegis destroyers that are moving into the area that can use the Aegis missile system to shoot down any of these warheads.
And don't they have some even bigger anti-missile missiles right there in Kauai, Hawaii?
That's right, but not in Guam. They're going to use the Guam assets. Hawaii is too far away, to effectively deal with that. In fact, they could even use the THAAD system in South Korea that could hit these missiles in their boost phase, which when they're most vulnerable, shooting out a big trail of flames.
Isn't that the way to do it, is you blow them up at 20,000 feet?
Or even less. I mean, yeah, they can get them in the boost phase from South Korean forces, and if those miss, they can get them as their incoming glowing warheads towards Guam. But the key to remember is that Trump now has the excuse to go after North Korea because they've attacked Guam. And it's not enough to say we're only aiming for the shore. Trump would say,
that's right. Let's talk about it in 70 seconds when we start the third hour. Joel Skousen's our guest, worldaffairsbrief.com. Key information, great analysis, looking at every angle of this, ladies and gentlemen. This is all a very dangerous time.
Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. If you're interested in healthy thyroid, if you're interested in well-being, if you're interested in having a higher IQ, which this has been linked to, get your powerful Survival Shield X2 at InfoWarsStore.com.